So we're in a college town. There's about 40,000 students when they all do come in. We've got two land grant universities, University of Idaho, Washington State University. And so this town, I think this question is kind of particularly important to our homegrown, population that comes here, that comes from out of town and comes in. I think my generation and kind of the coming college generation is kind of more skeptical of politicians and what they say than I think my parents' generation, your generation.
Right.
And why is that the case? What do you think is going on there?
Well, I don't blame them for being skeptical. I mean, people run for public office and they say, I'm going to reduce the debt, and they double it. They say, we're going to improve your lives and create new jobs. And the unemployment rate jumps and it gets worse. College students especially ought to be really, really angry right now. I mean, they're amassing huge debts to get an education that they were told if they obtained it, they would have good jobs out there. And the latest poll shows that a full third of young people between the ages of 18 and 34 are still living at home with their parents. And that's pretty scary. And that's wrong. I mean, there's no way that you can say, this is the way America's supposed to work. So can I blame them? No. And I think the only answer is we have to start being honest with people about what's realistic and possible. But a lot of what's wrong with America right now is that there's a lot of division. Some of it's between Democrats and Republicans. Some is between urban and rural. Some is between Republicans. Some is between Democrats. And what we need to ask ourselves is, do we want America to be the greatest nation on earth? If we do, you know what? There's some differences, but what unites us is a whole lot bigger than what divides us. And that kind of leadership is missing right now.
Yeah. And I think the second question kind of follow up on that trust issue with me. I'm a conservative. I want to vote conservative as much as possible, but I've had a hard time when I watched the Bush administration, when they had the House and the Senate. They got, I think, little accomplished in my mind for major party platform push. And then you get Obama and the Democrats in the House in control, and they got Obamacare passed.
Yeah.
So for me, it's particularly kind of almost personal, because I don't feel like the Republicans do much when they do have control, do have power.
I think that's fair. Republicans certainly didn't do the damage that Democrats have done over the past 6 years under Obama. So, but I want to be able to say that Republicans are more than, hey, we're not those guys. I really don't want to run on the platform of we're the Republicans, vote for us. We're not quite as bad as those guys. Yeah. I think what we need to do is recapture what it means to be Republican. And it doesn't mean that we hate government. We're not libertarians. We're Republicans, and it means we understand that there's a certain level of government that is necessary. But whatever we have, it needs to be limited, it needs to be local, it needs to be efficient, and it needs to be economically justifiable. We've done none of those things. Yeah. That's why I think it's really important that we lay out, give us a chance, give us the White House, the Senate, and the House. I really do think that if there were more things coming out of the House that could get through the Senate, we'd be in a different place. But people have to remember, as long as Harry Reid is sitting there like mother hen on top of every piece of legislation like it was an egg he's supposed to hatch, we're not going to change it. So it's critical to get the Senate this year. Everybody talks about 2016. I'm all about it. But until we capture the Senate in 2014, we're not going to make the kind of changes we need to.
Yeah. I think you hinted at this at the very beginning about I'm tired of kind of voting with the least of two evils.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's either this guy or this guy, and I don't like either of them, right? This goes to my Christian faith, where abortion is kind of the holocaust of our time.
Yeah.
It seems like when the Republicans get in office, little gets done. I know there was some stuff that was passed under Bush in the beginning, but with, I guess, go back to the example of Obamacare, they passed major party platform.
Yeah.
And we can't seem to do very little when it comes to the abortion issue. Any comments on that?
Well, for some reason, some Republicans seem to be afraid of the life question, and I don't understand why. I think it's the most defensible issue we'll ever take a stand on, because, I'm happy to take that stand on with anybody. I've gone on Jon Stewart's show, on The Daily Show. I've been on Stephen Colbert. I've debated this with Bill Maher. I'm happy to talk about it with anybody, because I want them to look me in the eye and tell me that there is such a thing as a disposable or expendable human being.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. Well, it's not about that. Oh, yes, it is. That's really the issue. Which person out here do we find worth less than the rest of us? So we value our lives to protect ourselves, but we allow someone else to live. It is the scourge of our nation. And I think it's one of those things we've got to answer to God for, and we need to answer to the American people for. We need to be bold about it. And this nonsense of telling us to dial it back and not bring up those issues, that's the kiss of death for the Republicans, because there is a great body of people in this country who still have a conscience, they still have a heart, they still believe that every human being has value and worth. And for us to abandon those issues is not only to abandon our core values and principles and the people who could make the Republicans a majority, but you know what is most important? It's abandoning the innocent lives of people for whom we're their only voice.
Right. You mentioned local earlier. It seems like, based off my study and things that I've known about American history and politics and law and all that, it seems like keeping things local and nullification seems like a good process in abortion. Would, just the states nullify federal law because it's past their jurisdiction to be able to determine what is life and what is not. What role do you think nullification could play in all this if there was some guts and backbone?
I'd be very happy to see states take that on, but I'd love to see a president just say, the Supreme Court is just one of the three branches of government. It does not have the power to solely create legislation that results in the lives, the death of 55 million people. So I'd love to see a president say, as of now, we're no longer going to impose some unlegislated dictate on 50 states. We're just not, because the court can tell us that something is not constitutional. It, however, does not have the constitutional authority to prescribe the fix.
Right.
And so when we see this, whether it's the abortion issue or the marriage issue,
or the Obamacare issue,
where they're not only telling us that you're going to have to fix it, legislature, they're saying, we'll fix it. We'll tell you what you have to do. That is as blatantly unconstitutional. It's a power grab. It's a form of judicial supremacy. And I think that most people who got out of 9th grade civics would know, you can't do that.
Right. Last question, maybe more of a kind of a discussion point here. Going back to kind of the Libertarian, Cantor just got, voted out basically. What it seems like the one thing that I think Libertarians have going for them, and which I like, is they not only believe what they're saying, but they're trying to do what they're saying. And that's kind of where it kind of rubs wrong with me in the Republican Party, where they say what they believe, but they don't seem to act on it much. And what value do you think the Libertarian movement is producing in this process?
Well, first of all, let me be very honest. I appreciate a Libertarian point of view as it relates to spending and intrusion into our lives. I get that and agree with them.
Sure.
But where I feel like the Libertarians fall short as a party, and let's keep in mind, if a person wants to be a Libertarian, there is a Libertarian Party. They're welcome to lead in that and be on the ballot. I resent it when people who are hardcore Libertarian believe that they are actually a purer form of Republican, because they're not really Republican, they're Libertarian. That's a different party. But here's the challenge that I think we face from the Libertarians. They want to take all of what some of us would call the moral issues or the value issues off the table and say those don't matter. Well, I governed a state for 10.5 years. I'm going to tell you right now, you can't have a strong economy if the moral fabric of your culture and society falls apart and breaks down. Most of our cost as a government, it's about putting back together the people that are broken because of their own moral failures.
All legislation is legislative morality.
Is exactly what it does. You can't legislate behavior, but all legislation legislates the standard. Whether it's you can only drive 60 miles an hour, you've legislated the morality of driving. That's what it does. Doesn't mean people are going to drive 60, but it just means you've defined what's right and what's wrong.
Thanks, Mike.
You bet. Glad to